Hey everybody, today is March 12th, 2020. Hope everyone's doing all right. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the numerology of the coronavirus pandemic as it was declared yesterday by the World Health Organization. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of work on this. In fact, I've been on a little bit of a break, been really busy the past week. However, I did do a post on coronavirus a week ago, and now that this has hit a complete fever pitch and it's been declared a pandemic by the WHO, I figured now would be a fitting time to look a little bit more at the numerology of this disease and ultimately the underlying riddle beneath the disease. Now on this channel, of course, we talk about the language of Gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words and the observation of this code. Well, another thing I cover a lot on this channel is date durations, and ultimately date durations relating to total solar eclipses, as solar eclipses appear to be a remarkably significant event when it comes to numerology. Throughout the past couple of years, I've consistently referred to this total solar eclipse that occurred in the year 1331. Now understand this video might again be a little bit longer than most, but I'm going to be covering several different angles here and basically sprinkling my icing on this cake, showing what the coronavirus epidemic really is. And this might be a bit exhausting to some of you, but understand the significance here. This is all really important to the code. This 1331 eclipse is very significant, and the first thing that stands out about it is the path of totality, which, as you can see on this picture on the left, never crosses a major body of water. And to this day, I've never seen a total solar eclipse with a similar path that never crosses a major body of water. Now, when I first came across Gematria, I, like many of us, was a skeptic. I had a hard time believing that something so basic could be so significant. So when I first went in to study the language, what I did is I gematrinated, well, that's a word that I created, but essentially I ran the gematria of all the numbers in our language and also the dates on our calendar. And I figured if this language was real, there would be very simple, clear patterns to pick up on. One of the very first things that stuck out to me about the list that I built is the significance of Jewish gematria. This cipher, also called Latin gematria, based in the ancient Latin alphabet, the language that dominated much of the civilized world for many centuries. This cipher places more modern English characters at the end. So this is a very logical cipher. So one of the things I picked up is the fact that 133 has a gematria value of 1331. So does the number 331, which is of course made up of the same letters. So the two words, or the two numbers that make up this number, have a gematria value summing to 1331. So that was all very interesting. But the number 1331 on its own has interesting properties. 1331 has a prime factorization of 11 cubed. And think about it, if you add 11 plus 11 plus 11, you get the number 33. And 1331 is 33 surrounded by an 11. So, speaking from that perspective, it's pretty interesting. 11 to the third power can also be written 11-3. Now, there's a date on our calendar that's written 11/30. That would be November 30th, which is the only date on our calendar that sums to 1331. This total solar eclipse, in which the path of totality never touches a major body of water, was on the date November 30th, 1331. 1331 eclipse equals 1331. Also notice our English reduction ciphers where this same phrase equals 131 and 130. So no doubt, this total solar eclipse seems to be coded into the language somehow. Now, it wasn't long after I started sharing this research that someone brought to my attention the fact that 1331 was the year that the Black Death Plague began traversing the world. And here, when you look at this Masonic publication, Wikipedia, their page on the Black Death migration, it specifically states that 75 to 200 million people were killed, peaking in Eurasia from 1331 to 1353. So how strange is it that this pandemic, the worst in human history, killing something like a third of all people, began this very year that this significant total solar eclipse reached over Europe and Asia. Now, just to blow your minds a little more, for those of you who don't already know this, here it says in 1313, an epidemic ravaged Beijing. It then specifically states the plague struck the Chinese province of Hubei in 1331. Hubei. Does this seem familiar to you? Wuhan, China, which is the city that this year's coronavirus pandemic first had its outbreak, is in the Hubei province. So what does this tell us? A lot of people have made the arguments that coronavirus is some sort of engineered disease, and there seems to be some evidence for this. I'm not going to dive into that, but if you do some research, you'll find that people were talking about, scientists being caught trying to leave China who were getting heavy payments, running biolabs. There certainly seems to be something to this. But as far as why this would be in Wuhan, of all places in the world, perhaps it's because, once again, we're seeing a numeric ritual play out by these elite rulers who understand this code. Now, when we're talking about total solar eclipses, understand right now is this significant period between two total solar eclipses that will travel across the United States of America. Back in 2017, we had the first Great American Eclipse. And in 2024, we'll have a second eclipse, creating an X over the United States. These two events, by the way, separated by 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. In Gematria, 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days equals 2,423. And if you measure from the first Great American Eclipse to the second Great American Eclipse, we get a span of 2,423 days. So this Jewish cipher, no doubt, looking at eclipse numerology, it's pretty significant. Of course, the phrase twin eclipses, 1331. Just to further drive the point home, if you turn the word eclipse upside down, you get 4 numbers, 3173, which also equals 1331. Now, something else that really stands out about this is that if you measure from November 30th of 1331, the date of this super eclipse, let's call it, measuring to the year 2019, notice how this is 688 years. In this same Jewish cipher, 688 years equals 2019. And now in the year 2019, we get another outbreak. By the way, the first case that was discovered in Wuhan, China, was on the date December 1st Isn't that interesting? December 1st, just one day after November 30th, the date of this eclipse. But why December 1st and not November 30th? In Jewish Gematria, Wuhan, China equals 1210, which is a lot like the date December 1st, written 12/1. Also, the second Great American Total Solar Eclipse, as I pointed out, occurs on a very interesting date. It occurs on the date 4/8 in 2024. And if you multiply 2 times 24, you get a product of 48. In the Jewish Gematria cipher, the word corona equals 224. This virus originating in Hubei, which equals 224. And perhaps I didn't properly mention this, but just think about the name coronavirus. Corona. Well, the corona is the only part of the sun that you see during a total solar eclipse. So anyone out there who calls this bizarre and my work on the moon and eclipses insane and going too far, I'm sorry, but no, this is the basis of the code they're using, and it's clear as day. It's even in the name of the virus that they're using. Interesting also that in English Gematria, the word disease sums to 224. Some more interesting Gematria here. The word Black Death, or the phrase Black Death, using the alphabetic order, sums to 67. 67 is the 19th prime number, and here we are dealing with the disease COVID-19. Also in the alphabetic order, Wuhan equals 67. 67 also the Gematria of total solar eclipse. Again, the only time at which the corona of the sun is visible. In Jewish Gematria, the word coronavirus sums to 1303. Now in numerology, zeros are ignored, so this represents the number 133. And remember what I started this video out talking about. 133 equals 1331. Also notice the reverse Gematria, coronavirus summing to 142. This is a number I talk about being significant in relation to eclipse sacrifice, 142. Now again, yesterday, March 11th, is the date on which this coronavirus pandemic became a global phenomenon. And just notice the Gematria of coronavirus pandemic, declared as such on the date March 11th of 2020. In reverse reduction, coronavirus pandemic sums to 113. This is the same as global epidemic, 113. And of course, it's the year 2020. And in ordinal, coronavirus pandemic equals 220. Now, 113, a number of dishonesty. Dishonest equals 113, not honest, 113. Perjury, 113. There's a whole slew of these. And this is a number we've been talking about a lot this year, especially on this channel. The name Kobe Bryant equals 113. He died at the age of 41, just like his name in Gematria. It was 157 days after his birthday. And ever since his death, we've seen a lot of alignments with the coronavirus disease. In fact, Kobe Bryant was buried in the city of Corona del Mar, California. That's right. That's a true story. Furthermore, his name, Kobe Bean Bryant, summing to 135. Corona del Mar, California, summing to 135. Also notice how Kobe Bean Bryant equals 54. Well, the date that coronavirus was declared a pandemic, which was 11/3, also had numerology of 54. See this? Now, of course, Kobe Bryant, one of the most famous basketball players of all time. Yesterday, the NBA suspended its season. And this didn't just happen to coincide with the World Health Organization's declaration of a pandemic, but this is because one of the players on the team was allegedly diagnosed with coronavirus. Now, isn't it interesting that Thunder Jazz equals 54 in both reduction methods, standard and reverse? And who was the player that was diagnosed? Well, his name was Rudy Gobert, I should say. Rudy Gobert, Rudy Gobert equals 54 in both reduction methods. His name also equals 135, which is the same as Kobe Bean Bryant, further proving that Kobe is somehow mystically connected to this coronavirus disease. Wow, and his name equals 234. This is another thing that I need to talk about. This brings us to the whole 666 connections. Okay, now 234 is a number that's connected to 666. If you add 234 to the inverse, 432, you get a sum of 666. And I've been documenting on my blog the significance of 666 in relation to Kobe Bryant basically since the beginning of the year. In fact, I did a post specifically on the number 666 in relation to eclipses in Kobe Bryant back on February 1st. It was Kobe Bryant's 666th game in which he scored 81 points. Kobe Bean Bryant summing to 81 in reduction. The date on which he scored 81 points in his 666th game was January 22nd, the date written 1/22. And it just so happens that 1/22 was the date on which Wuhan, China was first placed into quarantine. It was also the date that I think this year Netflix released the film, was it Outbreak? Forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but look it up yourself. This is all the truth. When you write out 666 in Gematria, notice how it sums to 2038. Last night's game that was canceled in the NBA was Jazz Thunder. Notice how that sums to 2038. Is that a coincidence? Well, of course not. World Health Organization, who declared this a problem, sums to 2083, which is the Gematria of 666. Also notice how 666 equals 275 in ordinal. World Health Organization equals 275 in ordinal. Now, if you go back in time, exactly 666 days before coronavirus was declared a pandemic, we arrive at May 15th of 2018. Well, it just so happens that on May 15th of 2018, there was a global pandemic exercise held by multiple organizations at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. This disease was called Clade X. And if you read up on the details of this exercise, you see some pretty alarming alignments with what's going on right now with coronavirus. In fact, it's almost like a mirror image. Of course, the nations are changed a little bit. The locations are switched around. It's not the exact same, but the way this disease spreads is almost exactly like we're seeing with coronavirus here. And remember, this exercise 666 days before the declaration of coronavirus as a pandemic. Wow, and look at this. Clade X in Gematria sums to 113. And when you measure from Clade X to 11/3, you get this 666. There's more interesting things here. This exercise carried out on the 135th day of the year. Kobe Bean Bryant, 135. Rudy Gobert, 135. Also notice the 58, the primary numerology. Kobe Bryant, 58. So do yourself a favor, read up a little bit about on this, and it's strange how for so many years we had all these exercises surrounding mass shootings, and now we see exercises that virtually mirror what's being reported as real life anyway in the media. So once again, coronavirus, the first case was logged on December 1st of 2019. Oh, by the way, before I go on, I should mention that in this exercise, the story takes a twist. It turns out that terrorists were responsible for creating the disease that becomes a pandemic. And of course, in the media, we're never going to find out that coronavirus was a bioweapon of sorts, but it's my belief that there's a good chance it is. Okay, so again, the first case of coronavirus on December 1st of 2019. This happened exactly 56 days before the death of Kobe Bryant. Coronavirus equals 56 in reduction. The date on which coronavirus was declared a pandemic, March 11th, that's normally the 70th day of the year. Coronavirus equals 70 in reverse Gematria. What's also interesting about the date, March 11th, is that it falls 56 days before the date 5/6. And again, coronavirus equaling 56. Kobe Bryant, buried in the city of Corona del Mar. Interesting, it also sums to 56. Bubonic plague, the nickname for Black Death, which, as I explained in the beginning of this video, this coronavirus seems to be in relation to. Also interesting that COVID in Hebrew Gematria sums to 41. That's the age that Kobe Bryant, whose name sums to 41, was when he died. His nickname was Black Mamba, which sums to 100. China equals 100, the origin of the disease. Kobe Bryant dying at the end of the NFL's 100th season. Kobe also won his first Olympic gold medal in the country of China. Something else that's interesting about this Gobert character, and this ties into another thing about this. Now, again, I commonly say on this channel, I'm not here to pander fear, and it upsets me a little bit when people comment saying how scared they are because of my video. My video is meant to dispel the fear that's being pushed by the media. Please understand that. So I don't necessarily believe that what I'm going to share is real, but it's cause for concern, and it's a cause for people to get involved and understand what this coronavirus, which appears to really be a global exercise in government control. You're seeing this in Italy to the full regard. Understand that in America, they technically are not legally able to quarantine us without due cause, due process for each individual. But that's for you guys to dig up on your own. But what I wanted to point out about this guy, Gobert, again, this is the basketball player who was recently diagnosed with coronavirus, which led to the NBA suspending its season. We talked about how his name sums to 54, just like the date numerology, also 135 like Kobe Bryant. But just the last name itself, Gobert. Notice how in the alphabetic order, this name sums to 67. Remember Black Death 67, Wuhan 67, total solar eclipse 67 in reduction. And again, 67 is the 19th prime number, and he's been diagnosed with COVID-19, okay? Understand, this seems like a fairy tale. But also check out in Jewish Gematria, Gobert sums to 244, which is the Gematria of 19 when you write it out. The United States of America became a nation after the Declaration of Independence on July 4th of 1776. That means this year, America turns 244 years old. In Hebrew Gematria, the word for kill gives us a value of 244 and 19. So there's been a lot of theories lately about the involvement of 5G technology in relation to coronavirus. Some of the research I've seen is very provocative, very thought-provoking. I don't know personally what to think of it. I'm no scientist. I'm just a guy in my chair running numbers. But what I've heard is pretty interesting because coronavirus, the symptoms of it are not like a normal cold or flu, which is normally accompanied by a heavy whooping cough, where there's fluid in the lungs. Coronavirus seems to be the opposite. There's a dry cough involved. And the things I did find interesting are that they're saying something else that can cause a dry cough would be a lack of oxygen in the blood. And something else that can cause a lack of oxygen in the blood is the specific frequency range that 5G is capable of activating. And it's allegedly able to mess up your cells a little bit so that it prevents them from carrying oxygen, which, certain people could be more prone to. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily believe that, but it could be true, and it's something worth concern. I mean, 5G can be some freaky stuff. No one I know or anyone near me has experienced symptoms like this, but it's worth looking into, and I hope everybody can at least do their own research and come to their own conclusions on that. But, it's interesting that not only is that the case, but that we're approaching this very significant time in our nation's history, 244 years, which, as I've been explaining, is part of this kill code. Now, in English Gematria, using the standard alphabetic order, the word kill sums to 44. 44 years before this coronavirus pandemic, we had a big swine flu scare. And in 1976, the government offered vaccinations against that influenza outbreak, which actually resulted in a lot more problems than benefits. I think thousands of people sued the government for the tune of billions of dollars because of neurological problems that happened after accepting the vaccination. So, of course, that's another concern of mine, is that here comes the government saying, hey, we have this global pandemic, we need people to take a vaccination for it. You might not want to do that. But again, I'm no doctor. Don't take my advice. In regards to Gobert's 67, by the way, it's worth pointing out that Kobe also equals 67. So does Black Mamba, his nickname. 67 in reverse reduction. And Kobe died on a date with 67 numerology. Once again relating to 19, the 19th prime. Kobe also equaling 33 in ordinal. The prime factors of 33 are 311, just like the date that coronavirus was declared a pandemic. And then worth pointing out that in reduction, Corona equals 33. Corona, intriguingly, also with the same gematria as Lakers, the team that Kobe played for, 66 and 96. So yeah, I mean, coronavirus is obviously something I've been wanting to do some work on, but as with anything that's in the news every single day, it's a little bit difficult because you're looking for milestone dates, landmark dates that you can really use to build the narrative for the riddle that we're looking at. And finally, now that coronavirus has officially been declared a global pandemic, we're really seeing the full numerology of this start to play out. And we're going to see more. We're going to see some celebrities maybe die from this. And it's funny because I was just at my parents' house a couple days ago, and they were, it's a long road waking your family up, and they were finally expressing some doubt about what they're seeing around the coverage of coronavirus. And I told them just about 3 or 4 days ago, I said, you know what? Within the next week, we're going to start seeing celebrities come out who say they have coronavirus. We're going to see athletes come out. We're going to see major cancellations. And then, boom, just like clockwork, the NBA postponing, maybe canceling its season. The NCAA, by the way, NCAA equaling 19, telling us that the tournament will be played in front of no fans. How much is that going to suck? Talk about pulling people into a low state of vibration. The most exciting time of the year with no fans in the stadiums. How ridiculous. And now Tom Hanks, his wife, coming out saying they have coronavirus. It was all predictable. It's just all insanity. My gravest concern coming out of this is that they're going to start telling people to not leave their homes. And that's the point at which people really definitely need to protest. That's when we need to get out of our homes and really start taking our lives back. Because this is all about fear. And that's why I'm cautious about pushing this thing about 5G possibly killing us and stuff like that. I don't want to put that in the public consciousness because to me that's more fear-mongering. On the other hand, there could be a modicum of truth to it. So, try to be measured here. But we have to stay aware. We have to stay conscious to what's happening around us. And the moment at which they start telling us to stay in our homes is when we really have to take this government back from them. So, no cause for alarm yet, but good grief, guys. In a time like this, it's important to reach spiritual peace. Remember, I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ, and that's the only true way out of this in the long run. It's not to say that we shouldn't be taking action. We should be informing everyone around us. But there's a certain point where things are out of our control, and when it comes to accepting our fate, life and death, understand that, again, there's only one way out of here in the long run. So that's my belief, and it's not because it makes sense. It's through experience. But I just wanted to share this really significant find with you guys in regards to, the eclipse numerology behind coronavirus. And you don't really have to think about it. I mean, like I said, it's in the name, coronavirus. Corona. Only visible during a total eclipse. I'm going to take about 5 minutes here at the end because I do have work today, so I'm going to be getting to that soon in a little bit. But I do want to take a few minutes to kind of glance at the chat. I have not been looking at this at all through the video. I've been kind of rushing through this. Just to start, is it artificial? There's absolutely an artificial element to this. Now, I caution people when I speculate on things, understand, again, I'm not coming from a place of knowledge on these. I'm just collecting all of the different news I get from various outlets, whether it's the real news, whether it's truthers. I personally think that it's a slightly modified cold or something to that effect. And the reason I do believe that there's something real about it is because they have to fool an entire world of medical professionals here. Not every single doctor is some Freemason who's in on a conspiracy. It's just not true. But there has to be some difference in coronavirus in order for people to, in order for real doctors to not pull alarms, because it would be way too easy to say, hey, there's nothing here. We're looking at this virus. There's no difference between the common cold. That's something that would come out. So there might be a slight difference, but I don't think it's necessarily killing people. I think it's probably just a standard disease. If anything really is killing people, then we need to, maybe look into that 5G thing again. I know a lot of people think it's fake. I don't know. That's not my job to tell you guys what it is. I kind of did the NBA being canceled by the numbers. I'm going to definitely be doing a post on it later, probably tonight. I don't know if I'll be doing another video on it, but... And understand, the real goal of this whole psychological operation. Whether or not it's a conspiracy, I mean, that to me is obvious, but it's definitely a psychological operation the way they're treating this. And what sucks about this is that a lot of poor, people, a lot of people who are financially disadvantaged are going to struggle here because they're going to be losing money. And big businesses are going to be fine. They're going to be able to survive, maybe a couple months of quarantine and lockdown. But there's going to be a lot of people who are financially struggling. And of course, it's going to hurt the poor more than anybody, the people who need those week-to-week paychecks. Someone mentioned that December 1st could technically be November 30th here in the United States. I suppose that's true. I guess I would point out that this eclipse was in China, so they would be using that time zone, but good observation nonetheless. How to Survive a Pandemic. Maybe that was the Netflix show that I was talking about, released on January 22nd, which was the 14th anniversary of Kobe Bryant's 666th game in which he scored 81 points. Yeah, I mean... I don't necessarily want to get involved in the hoax theory because it can be divisive, right? And as the quote-unquote truth community, we're just trying to find a common ground here. It's just hard for me to wrap my head again around how it could be completely hoaxed. I think people might be getting sick, and, why is that more difficult to believe than this being an outright hoax? Like... Maybe they did engineer a disease to kill some people with weak immune systems. I think that's totally possible. But again, the number one name of the game is fear. So that's what's being pushed. And that's what we need to be conscious of when we're looking at these stories. Somebody mentioned Death 19 in the Chaldean cipher. That's true. I also want to point out how death is 20 in reduction. And of course, here we are in the year 2020. And within the first month, we already had one of the biggest celebrity deaths of all time in the sudden death of Kobe Bryant. So this year, we're going to see more death. I mean, that's definitely going to happen. And it could be even the death of some celebrities from this alleged coronavirus. Someone mentioned Corona beer. Hey, everybody out there, if you drink beer, I urge you, please buy Corona. Help that poor company. I kind of feel bad for them because their business is hurting because so many people are stupid. Okay, almost getting to the end of this chat here. because I'm genuinely actually interested in what some of you guys are saying. You know, as this coronavirus coverage has grown and grown over the past few weeks, I've been further and further deterred from looking at the news. Like, it's so far out of control. It's trying to suck so much of my energy. And I just have too much shit going on right now. And I really don't want to pay much attention to it. I got my own life to worry about. I've taken on a couple more responsibilities at work. And, I kind of like working. As weird as that sounds to some people. Like, I can't do numerology full time. And I never will. I like that I can contribute to the community on the side, but there's a strong part of me that has to work and contribute to society at the same time. And in my job, I get the feeling that I am helping and contributing. So I don't plan on quitting my job or anything and making money from this. Oh, man, that's right. Someone pointed this out. The phrase, "this is a hoax" equals 666. Isn't that interesting? I don't know if this means anything. Could be a total freaking coincidence, but... Does speak in code equal 666? Not in that cipher. Maybe a different cipher. MLB, possible suspension of season? Oh my God, I hope not. That would be freaking crazy. That would really actually surprise me because remember, sports are the opiate of the masses. And if people have no sports to watch to fill every single day, aren't they going to start looking for more truth? Aren't they going to start perusing the internet a little bit more and finding channels like this that will start getting them to question reality and start questioning what they really are and the type of power they have to affect real change? That's why I don't think this is going to blow up more than, a couple weeks. Like, this is an exercise, I think. They're definitely trying to gauge how receptive the public is to something like a quarantine or a lockdown. Maybe social media hasn't done its proper job of separating people, because no doubt that's what it's done. Despite the fact that we're more connected than ever, we've never been more emotionally disconnected from one another. And part of this whole psychological operation I'm seeing with coronavirus is just that they're trying to keep people away from each other, telling all these people that they have to work from home now for months at a time, not being able to go to school. These are people who would normally be making very important human connections in these social environments who are now going to be separated and stuck in their own little quarters. And that's exactly the type of society that the New World Order would want. People who aren't banding together, people who don't have a true emotional connection to one another. That's what results in confusion, and that's why I've completely dropped social media. I think those of you who are sharing numerology on social media, I definitely commend you. Me personally, I just don't have the energy for it. Global Genocide 666? Okay, probably in another cipher. Someone mentioned, Jade Helm. I was going to bring that up. I think that's definitely related to what we're seeing pan out here. Part of the reason, by the way, that I do think it's more of a hoax than anything is that these celebrities coming out on the day... The timing of this is so bizarre, right? The World Health Organization declaring it a pandemic... The very same day that an NBA star gets diagnosed with coronavirus, the very same day Tom Hanks comes out saying he has it. It's beyond crazy. So, okay, I think I'm going to be wrapping this up here. I would... I would tell everybody just to do the basic things. I mean, again, not to fearmonger, but yeah, wash your hands, take care of yourself. But that's stuff that you should be doing anyway. Now, granted, I wouldn't call myself a germaphobe. I am someone who's always pretty cautious about the type of germs I'm taking in. Like, I don't like giving random people high fives even. Even that's always bothered me. But, you know, kiss your loved ones, hug your family, take public transportation, whatever. Hopefully, yeah, this is all done in a month. And I think it will be because, like I said, if this goes on for months and months and months, people will start digging, people will start looking for truth, and people will start discovering what's really happening and protesting. That's my belief. That's been my argument as to why we haven't seen something like a Trump assassination, because the larger the news event, the more people are going to dig for what the truth lies behind it. And they're not trying to wake people up necessarily. They drop clues, they drop hints, but only a small percentage of people are going to pick up on that, and they know that. So, yeah, I think in a few weeks, in another month, we'll be in the clear on this, but that's not to say that the government won't have gained a whole lot of valuable knowledge as far as future methods. Because think about it, I mean, certainly, the government's not going to come door to door and take you into a Walmart and lock you up because you're anti-government. That's not going to happen ever. But the idea that the government tells us there's a disease and that they have to do it for our own safety, that's when I start wondering whether or not there's some legitimacy to those theories. Like, they could lie to enough people where, police or medical professionals feel like they might have to enslave people like that. So just keep your eyes out on it. You know what I mean? Stay sharp, stay aware, and always use your own brain. All right, guys. Thanks to everybody who jumped in on this morning live stream to discuss the coronavirus and the ridiculous numerology behind it. It's good to see about 100 people live in here. It's that the knowledge is always spreading and growing. All right, everyone. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone. Adios.